Welcome, learner, to the lecture 6 on elasticity of demand. Here we can study about the various concept, types or degree of elasticity of demand. As you know very well, in managerial economics, elasticity helps manager to understand how strongly consumer respond to its price changes. In simple terms, elasticity tells us whether demand changes a lot or only slightly when price changes. This concept is extremely useful in pricing decisions, revenue planning, and demand forecasting. Let's see the learning objective of this slide. After studying this topic, the learner will be able to learn the understand the concept of elasticity of demand. Here you can also explain the different types of elasticity of demand, the measurement, the degree of responsiveness of quantity demanded to a price changes, also study distinguish between elastic, inelastic, and unitary demand and interpret the elasticity using graph and numerical values. Let's start with the meaning of elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand refers to a degree of responsiveness of quantity demanded of a commodity to change in its determinants, especially price, in which it measures how much the demand for a product changes when the factor like price or income changes. This is the formula of elasticity of demand, where percentage change in quantity demanded to a percentage change in price, where ED represent the elasticity of demand. Let's talk about the various concepts of elasticity of demand. The first one is price elasticity of demand, whereas the price elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness of quantity demanded to a change in price, and it can be represented as percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. For example, you have seen this graph that if the price decreases by 10%, the demand increases by 20%. This is about the price elasticity of demand. In this graph, the demand is elastic. We have studied the 5 types of price elasticity of demand in the next slides, but before that, let's discuss the various concepts first. The next one is income elasticity of demand. In income elasticity of demand, the change in demand is caused by change in consumer income. Therefore, the income elasticity of demand can be written as YAD, that's equal to percentage change in quantity demanded to a percentage change in income. The next one is cross elasticity of demand, where the cross elasticity of demand measures the change in demand for one product due to a change in the price of another related product. In here, we can talk about the substitute and complementary goods. The next one is advertising elasticity of demand, in which it measured how advertising affect the demand for a product. We can see all these various concepts step by step. Now, let's first start about the various concept of elasticity of demand. The first one is price elasticity of demand. It defines the responsiveness of quantity demanded to a change in price. How much quantity demanded refers to how much change in price, and it can be represented as the percentage change in quantity demanded to a percentage change in prices. Okay, it can be right in this formula. This is the demand curve of graph, where you have seen the price is shown in vertical axis and the quantity demanded shown in horizontal axis, and this is the downward sloping of demand curve. Let's see the 5 variety of price elasticity of demand. The first one is elasticity of demand is greater than 1, the lesser than 1, equal to 1, 0, and infinity. Let's discuss one by one in the next slide. Just see the types or degree of price elasticity of demand, we have to study the five varieties in the price elasticity of demand. The first one is perfectly elastic demand, that is elastic demand is infinity. It means a small change in price causes very large change in demand. For example, perfect competition market. The next we have to study the relative elastic demand, in which elasticity of demand is greater than 1, in which demand changes more than price, that is the luxury good. Third one is unitary elastic, where elasticity of demand is equal to 1, where we have seen the proportionate change in demand and price some manufactured goods. The next one is relative inelastic demand, where elasticity of demand is lesser than 1. Demand changes less than price. This is based on necessary goods like medicines and salt. The next one is perfectly inelastic demand, that is 0. Demand does not change with change in price, that is the life-saving machine. This is all about the types or degree of price elasticity of demand. From moving to the next slide, we have seen the types of elasticity of demand one by one. The first price elasticity of demand is, that is the perfectly inelastic demand. In this situation where quantity demanded does not change at all when the price changes. First, we have to see this particular graph. Here, the prices has been shown in vertical axis and the quantity demanded shown in horizontal axis. We have seen this graph. The demand is a straight line opposite to the vertical axis. That means that the quantity demanded does not change with the change in price. As we have seen, the price may be decreased P1 to P2, but the quantity demanded does not change with change in price. This is the case of perfectly inelastic demand, in which consumer buy same quantities of regardless goods where the price changes or decrease. For example, if there is a life-saving machine or there is insulin, drugs or medicines, if the prices may be increase or decrease, the consumer demand is same. Here you have seen this example: life-saving machine, essential drug like insulin, very nursery goods with no substitute. These goods are all, if their demand will be not change when the prices increases or decreases. The next one is perfectly elastic demand. In perfectly elastic demand, where quantity demanded drops to 0 even when a slightly change in price. You have seen this graph. You have seen that price has been shown in vertical axis and quantity demanded shown in horizontal axis. In this graph, you have seen demand curve is a straight line and opposite to quantity demanded, where price has no change and quantity demanded increases from Q to Q1. This shows that some goods consumer buy at one specific prices and there is a no change in price. For example, many perfect substitute goods are available in the market, therefore price remains the change, only quantity demanded may be increase or decrease. As we have seen in particular this section, examples like identical agriculture product goods sold in perfectly competition market, commodities with many perfect substitute. All these are the example of perfect elastic demand, where there is slightly or tiny increase in prices causes quantity demanded falls to quantity demand to fall to 0. This is the example of perfect elasticity demand. Moving on to the next, that is the unitary elastic demand, which refers to change in quantity demanded exactly equal change in price. That is the proportionate change in quantity demand and prices are equal. This is the particular formula of price elasticity of demand, and this is the table where you have seen that the prices may be increased, prices may be increased, the quantity demanded will decrease, or the prices may changes, so quantity demanded may be also change. For example, you have seen that there is a price and quantity demand. In this graph you have seen that when the price is P1, the quantity demanded is Q1, and when the price is decreased from P1 to P2, the quantity demanded will increase from Q to Q1, and this is the downward sloping of demand curve, which shows that the unitary elastic demand. The next one is relatively elastic demand, which means that percentage change is quantity demanded more than percentage change in price. Directly, you have seen this graph particular, you have seen that when the prices is O, when the prices is P1, the quantity demanded is Q1. When the prices are decreases from P1 to P2, the quantity demanded more increase from Q1 to Q2. We have seen this graph that changes in prices is less than quantity demanded Q1 to Q2. This shows that the quantity demanded or relatively elastic demand is greater than 1. For example, luxury goods like jewelry, high and electronics, non-essential good with many substitute goods for with large purchases can be postponed. You have seen that when there is a slightly changes in prices, there is a more change in quantity demand, where it shows that the price elasticity of demand is greater than 1. As we can see that there is a 20% changes in quantity demanded and only 10% changes in price. Now let's talk about the relatively inelastic demand. It's a situation where the percentage change in quantity demanded is less than percentage change in price. In an earlier slide, we will see the relatively elastic demand where the quantity demanded changes more as compared to price, but in relatively inelastic demand, prices changes more as compared to quantity demanded. For example, this graph where you have seen that when the prices is P1 to Q1 initially, when the prices decreases more and quantity demanded also increases but in a less proportionate as compared to more decrease in price. Here you have seen that the percentage changes in quantity demanded is less as compared to percentage change in price, where it shows the elasticity of demand it's lesser than 1. For example, you have seen this necessity goods like water, electricity, basic food items good with fewer substitute. As you have seen, the prices may be increase or decreases. Some necessity goods demands are same, it may be slightly changed. Moving on to the next concept, that is the cross elasticity of demand, in which it measures change in demand for good due to change in the price of another good. It can be expressed as percentage change in quantity demanded of a good A to a percentage change in the price of good. This is the example of substitute and complementary group that is shown in this graph. This is a substitute good and this is a complementary goods. We have seen that where the prices is P1 and demand is D1. If there is any changes in prices, the demand will be changes in same direction. For example, here seen this graph, when the prices changes from P1 to P2, the demand also changes from D1 to D2. Why? In substitute goods, for example, tea and coffee, when the prices of tea are increases, the demand for coffee also increase, in which the demand curve sloping upward direction. Where when we talk about the complementary goods, we can talk about the two goods which are used together, that is the car and petrol. As you have seen that there is an initial price P1 and demanded D1. When the prices of car decreases from P1 to P2, the demand for petrol also increases from D1 to D2. This is the complementary goods in which both goods are used together. If one good prices changes, the other may be also affect. Here are the some types or degrees of cross elasticity of demand. Let's talk it first. When we talk about the substitute goods can be replace each other. For example, tea and coffee, Pepsi and cola. So when the price of A goods increases, the demand for B good also increases. This is shown in substitute goods. When the price of one good increases, the demand for other one is also increases, and when the price of one good decreases, demand for another one decreases. So here, this is the explanation of substitute good. When we talk about the complementary goods, it is goods that can be used together. This is shown in this particular section, where the prices is decreases, the demand will increase of another, and when the price of good is increases, the demand for other good decreases. For example, car and petrol, printer and ink. Just show this table where the positive cross elasticity of demand is substitute goods. Why it is shown the positive cross elasticity? Because both goods price and demand are in a increasing or decreasing way, or value is greater to 0, that is tea and coffee. Negative cross elasticity of demand shown in complementary goods, because one price is increases and other demand is decreases, so cross elasticity of demand is lesser than 0, that is car and petrol, for example. And the third one is zero cross elasticity of demand, that is unrelated goods, where cross elasticity of demand is equal to 0, for example sugar. Now, let's talk about the third concept, that is income elasticity of demand. It shows how demand changes when the consumer income changes. So, it denotes percentage change in quantity demanded to a percentage change in income. Here, you have seen that there are three types of income elasticity of demand, that is positive, negative, and high. And here we can talk about the two goods, that is the normal and inferior goods. When we talk about the normal and inferior goods, as we know, the income of the consumer increases, the demand for normal goods it also increases, and when the income of the consumer decreases, the demand for normal goods also decreases. But in the case of inferior goods, when the income of the consumer increases, the demand for goods decreases, because it may be shift to luxury goods. And when the income of the consumer decreases, the demand for a good increases. Why? Because the consumer may shift from luxury to substitute or cheap goods. So here you have seen this diagram, positive income elasticity shown in normal goods, where both income and demand increases in same direction. Negative income show where the income elasticity of demand is lesser than 0 in the case of inferior goods, that is low quality goods. And the third one is high income elasticity of demand, that is related to luxury good, that is the car and jewelry. The next one is advertising elasticity of demand, where it measures how advertising expenditure affect the demand for a product, and it defines that advertising elasticity of demand is equal to percentage change in demand to percentage change in advertising expenditure. This is shown in upward direction. Why? The company increases advertising for a new smartphone also increases demand for that product. So here you have seen this graph, that demand shown in vertical axis and advertising shown in horizontal axis. You have seen that the demand is a demand curve shows in upward direction from A to B, where you have seen that when the expenditure increases, demand will also increases by 10%. Here is the formula of advertising elasticity of demand. We have already shown this, in particular this table, percentage change in demand divided by percentage change in advertising expenditure, whereas 10% shown in demand and 20% shown in advertising expenditure. So there are the three types of advertising elasticity of demand. The first one is inelastic, that is advertising elasticity of demand is lesser than 1, low effect. The, and the second one is unitary, that is proportionate effect. And the third one is elastic, that is the high effect. Moving on to the next, that is the factor affecting elasticity of demand. As you know, it measures how much quantity demanded for a commodity changes when its price change. So here, the degree of elasticity varies from product to product because of several factors. Let's start the major factor affecting elasticity of demand. The first one is availability of substitutes. The presence of substitute greatly affect elasticity. So in many substitutes are available, the demand is more elastic because consumer can easily switch to another product. If there is no close substitute, the demand is inelastic. For example, tea has many substitutes like coffee or cold, so its demand is more elastic. The next one is necessity or luxury goods, or we call as nature of a commodity. So elasticity also depends whether the commodity is necessary or luxury. So here in necessary goods demand is inelastic, whereas in luxury goods the demand are more elastic. For example, necessary goods are medicines while the luxury goods are cars examples. The next one is proportion of income. Consumer income affect their sensitivity to price changes. Higher income groups are less sensitive to price changes and lower income groups are more sensitive to price changes. So here a wealthy consumer may continue buying branded product even when their price increases, where goods that take large share of income tend to have elastic demand, in which goods that have small share of income tend to have inelastic demand. The next one is time period. In time period, elasticity of demand varies with the time available to the consumer. As you know, in short run, demand is usually inelastic because consumer cannot quickly change their consumption habits, but in long run, demand becomes more elastic as consumer adjusts their behavior. For example, if fuel prices increases, consumer may continue buying fuel initially, but over time they may switch to public transport. The next one is addiction. Addictive goods are generally inelastic, that is the cigarette and alcohol. The next one is definition to the market. As you know very well, there are many types of market, that is the perfect competition market, monopoly market and monopolistic market. And in every market there are the elasticity are playing a different roles. The next one is brand royalty. Strong brand royalty make demand inelastic, like for example monopoly market. The next one is habit forming good. The goods purchased out of habit are inelastic, for example coffee and chocolate. Here you have seen that the elasticity of demand, it's influenced by factors such as availability of substitute, nature of commodity, consumer income, proportion of income, time period, addiction, definition of market, brand royalty, habit forming, etc. Understanding, understanding these factors help businesses determine appropriate pricing strategy and predict consumer response to price changes. Thank you so much, learners, for listening me. In the next session, we will discuss about the measurement of elasticity of demand.